If you were to close your eyes and imagine the absolute perfect image of a French fairy tale, chances are you are imagining this place. Welcome to Yvoire, perched on the French shores of Lake Geneva. It is officially ranked as one of the most beautiful villages in France. And looking at it today, an explosion of colour, flowers and charm. It is easy to see why they call it the gem of the lake. But don't let the roses fool you. Before this was a garden paradise, it was a strategic military fortress, standing guard since the 14th century. Every stone here has a story, from medieval wars to fishing fleets. Today, we are going to walk these ancient ramparts, uncover the history behind the flowers, and see exactly how a medieval stronghold became a masterpiece of modern gardening. Let's step back in time. First, let's find our way. Yvoire sits right on the tip of the Léman Peninsula, separating the small lake from the Great Lake. We are technically in the Haute-Savoie region of France, but we are just a stone's throw or a short boat ride across the water from Switzerland. It feels like a border town, but one that decided to trade border guards for flowers. The first thing you will notice, besides the smell of the lake, is the sheer preservation. Yvoire is a member of the elite, the most beautiful villages in France association, and they don't hand that title out lightly. You have to meet strict criteria regarding history, architecture and preservation. Looking at these 700-year-old stone facades, you can tell they take it seriously. But Yvoire has a second obsession, flowers. This place has been awarded the prestigious 4 flowers rating in the national competition of floral cities. In the summer, this isn't just a village. It is basically a living botanical garden. Every balcony, every alleyway, and every windowsill is curated. It is colourful, it is lush, and honestly, it makes it incredibly hard to put your camera down. It is interesting to think that for centuries, this was just a humble community of farmers and fishermen. It wasn't until the 1950s that they really pivoted to tourism and started winning all these awards. Today, the fishing nets have mostly been swapped for souvenir shops and galleries, but the medieval soul, that is definitely still here. To properly enter Yvoire, you have to do it the way travellers have been doing it for 700 years, through the gates. Yvoire was originally surrounded by a massive curtain wall with only 2 ways in or out, the Geneva Gate and the Roverie Gate. If you look at the sheer thickness of these walls, you can see how serious they were about keeping people out. But today, the doors are wide open. Crossing this threshold really feels like stepping through a time portal. 1 minute you are in the modern world, and the moment you pass under this roof, everything shifts. The traffic noise disappears, the pace slows down, and suddenly you are completely enclosed in the Middle Ages. We are now officially inside the fortifications. From here, the village slopes gently down toward the water. The streets are incredibly narrow, designed for carts and horses, not cars, which is perfect for us, because the best way to see Ivoire is to get lost in these little alleys. To understand why this village looks the way it does, you have to rewind the clock to exactly 1306 before that year. This was just a loose collection of farms. But then came a man named Count Amadeus V of Savoy. Amadeus was a brilliant strategist. He was locked in a fierce war with his neighbours, the Dauphin, and he realised this peninsula was the perfect spot to control the lake. So, he didn't just build a castle, he completely redesigned the town. He turned Evoire into what the French call a Burg Castro, a fortified town. He granted the people living here franchises, basically tax breaks and rights, to encourage them to stay and defend the walls. The people you see walking around in historical paintings weren't just farmers. They were citizen soldiers. For the next 300 years, the people of Ivoire lived on the front lines, caught in a tug of war between the Dukes of Savoy, the French and the Swiss. But here is the irony. After the 16th century, the trade routes changed, the wars quieted down, and Ivoire fell asleep. It lost its military importance and became a quiet village of fishermen and farmers. And that big sleep is actually what saved it, because nobody cared enough to modernize it or tear it down. It stayed perfectly preserved in its medieval bubble until tourists rediscovered it in the 20th century. Now, walking through these postcard perfect streets, you might ask yourself, does anyone actually live here, or is this just a museum? The answer is yes, people do live here, but it is an exclusive club. The village of Evoire has a permanent population of just over 1,000 residents, known as Evoirians. But that number is deceptive. In the summer months, this tiny population swells as over 1 million visitors pass through these gates. It creates a fascinating dynamic. In July, it is a bustling international hub. But if you come here in deep winter, when the flowers are asleep and the lake is grey, the village returns to the locals. It becomes quiet, intimate, and very Savoyard. Culturally, Evoire has undergone a massive shift. For centuries, the culture here was defined by the lake, nets, fish, and survival. Today, the culture is defined by creativity. As you walk these alleys, you will notice it is not just souvenir magnets, it is filled with art galleries, glass blowers, and craftsmen. The village has effectively transformed from a fishing hub into an artist's colony. Despite the changes, the soul of the place remains deeply rooted in the Haute-Savoie region. This is a culture that values tradition, good food, and a slow pace of life. The people here are proud of that heritage. They aren't just French, they are Savoyards first.
Ah oui, 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 si, c'est bien.
We can't talk about Evoire without talking about the bigger picture. France is consistently the most visited country on Earth, welcoming over 100 million international visitors a year. And while Paris gets the glory, it is places like this, the hidden gems of the provinces, that are the real backbone of French charm. Evoire is the perfect example of this magnetic pull. Remember that population number I told you earlier, about 1,000 residents. Well, hold on to your hats. Every year, more than 1 million visitors pass through these gates. That is a ratio of 1,000 tourists for every single local. It is a massive responsibility. In the 1950s, the village faced a choice: continue as a struggling fishing community or embrace the future. They chose the future. They swapped their fishing nets for flower baskets. This wasn't an accident, it was a survival strategy, and it worked. Today, tourism is the lifeblood of this village. It is why the streets are spotless, why the flowers are perfect, and why the history is preserved. It is a delicate balance between being a real village and a world-class attraction. But Ivoire walks that tightrope better than almost anywhere else in Europe.
Voilà. En Grappan, tu l'imagines? En Corse, c'est des Grappans qui font...
And finally, all roads in Ivoire lead us here. You can't miss it. It appears on every postcard, every magnet, and every Instagram post. This is the Chateau d'Ivoire, and while the flowers are pretty, this is the reason the village exists. It is a classic example of a Savoyard fortress with its feet in the water. Count Amadeus V built this in 1306 to control the shipping lane between Geneva and Italy. If you look at the architecture, that massive square keep, the corner turrets, the sheer thickness of the walls, it screams military power. It wasn't built for comfort, it was built for control. But there is a fascinating scar in its history. During the wars of the 16th century, the castle was burned and stripped of its roof. For over 350 years, this massive structure stood here as a roofless, ghostly shell, exposed to the rain and snow. It wasn't until the 20th century that the roof and turrets were finally restored to the glory you see today. Now, the number one question every visitor asks is, can we go inside? And the answer is a firm no. This isn't a museum or a government building. It is a private home. The Bouvier d'Ivoire family has owned this castle since the 1600s, and they still live here today. So while we can admire the sleeping giant from the outside, the secret's inside. Stay inside. Right at the foot of the castle lies the other heart of Ivoire, the harbour. This is Lake Geneva, or as the locals call it, Lac Léman. It is the largest lake in Western Europe, and looking out from here, it feels less like a lake and more like an inland sea. For centuries, this harbour was filled with working fishing boats, hauling in the day's catch to feed the village. Today, it is a bit more glamorous. You will see the elegant white steamers of the Compagnie Générale de Navigation fleet ferrying people over from Switzerland, and private yachts bobbing in the sun. It is the perfect place to just sit, watch the boats, and breathe. But you cannot leave this harbour without trying the local legend. I am talking about Feilert's di Perci, perch fillets. It is the signature dish of the region, caught right here in the lake, lightly breaded, fried in butter, and served with a wedge of lemon. It is simple, it is fresh, and eating it right here by the water. It is basically mandatory. Standing here, looking across at the Swiss Alps on the other side, you realise why this spot was so strategic for the military, but also why it is so vital for the soul. The water connects everything here, the history, the food, and the view. If the castle represents the military might of Evreux, then this building represents its spirit. Dominating the skyline, right alongside the fortress, is the Church of St. Pancras. It is what they call an onion dome or a bulbous steeple. It is incredibly distinct and actually quite rare for this specific part of France. The church itself dates back to the 11th century, older even than the castle. But that shiny dome, that's a newer addition from the mid-19th century, drawing on Savoyard religious architectural traditions. Originally, this was a simple chapel. Over the centuries, it has been renovated, expanded, and transformed. The current steeple was actually covered in stainless steel in the late 1980s. It acts almost like a lighthouse. Whether you are out on a boat in the middle of Lake Geneva or hiking in the hills, the sun catches that metal. And you know exactly where Evreux is. It is dedicated to Saint Pancras, a child martyr which adds a layer of tenderness to this fortified village. Standing here, listening to the bells chime, you get a sense of the rhythm of life that has continued here uninterrupted for nearly 1,000 years.
Ça, Flo?
Now, if you want to experience the lake but skip the big crowds, you have to try something unique to Evoix, the solar boat. It is called L'air Fou. It is completely silent. Cruising on this feels like gliding on oil. It lets you get up close to the castle walls and the hidden coves without disturbing the wildlife or the peace. If you prefer solid ground, Ivoire is actually a major stop on the Via Rhône. That is the massive cycling route connecting Lake Geneva to the Mediterranean. But you don't have to bike to the sea. You can just take the Greenway path from the village. In 20 minutes, it leads you to the Domaine de Rouvray. It is a protected nature reserve famous for its ancient chestnut trees, some of which have been standing guard here for centuries. Back inside the walls, the action is a bit more artistic. This village is a heaven for craftsmen. You aren't just buying souvenirs, you are watching them being made, whether it is the master glass blowers at the Cristalerie or the painters in the galleries. The activity here is watching true artisans at work. It is hypnotic, and it is a huge part of the village's modern identity. And of course, in the summer, you can simply do what the locals do. Find the small beach, La Garrette, and jump in. The water is crystal clear, incredibly refreshing, and swimming with a view of the Alps. That beats a hotel pool any day. How do you get here? Well, if you are coming from Switzerland, specifically the town of Nyon, you have access to one of the most beautiful commutes in the world. You hop on the Compagnie Generale de Navigation ferry. It is a vintage paddle steamer or a modern cruiser that crosses the lake in just 20 minutes. It is seamless. You can have breakfast in Switzerland, hop on a boat, and be eating a crepe in France by lunchtime. It is the most popular way to arrive because, honestly, arriving by water gives you that dramatic medieval reveal that you just don't get from the road. If you are already in France or driving from Geneva, it is about a 30 to 45-minute drive. But here is the golden rule you need to know. Ivoire is a pedestrian village. You cannot drive inside the walls. You have to leave your car in the large lots outside the gates and walk in. It might sound like a hassle, but trust me, it is a blessing. It keeps the modern world and the engine noise completely out of the experience. Once you cross that line, it is just footsteps and conversation. So, that is Evoire, a place that started as a weapon of war and ended up as a sanctuary of flowers. It is a village of contradictions. It is incredibly popular, yet it manages to feel intimate. It is a medieval fortress, but it feels soft and welcoming. It is easy to be cynical about tourist hotspots in Europe, but Ivoire proves that sometimes a place is popular for a reason. The preservation here isn't just for show, it is a labour of love. Whether you come for the 700 years of history, the local perch, or just to get that perfect photo by the lake. This little corner of France delivers. My advice: come early in the morning before the boats arrive, or stay late after they leave. That is when the village whispers its secrets. It is truly the pearl of Lake Geneva.
Oui, ça c'est sûr, c'est ça quoi. Ah, c'est vrai.
Thank you so much for joining us on this walk through history. If you enjoyed this tour of Evoire, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And let us know in the comments, would you visit for the history or just for the food? Don't forget to subscribe for more travel documentaries from the most beautiful corners of the world. We will see you in the next adventure.